G'day champions, how you going? We're back in the normal side here, looking at a JC77 Jazz Chorus combo, a little hiss monster. Now all of these hiss, it's a factory standard added hiss, you don't even have to pay extra for it like you do a Mesa Boogie. So we can't do much about that without redesigning a lot of the circuit. But there are some underlying issues, and we may be able to slightly improve it, but it's going to be a little bit marginal in improvements without fully redesigning large areas of the circuit. So the main problem with this one is there's a bit of hum in the background. Don't know if you can pick that up, but there's a bit of hiss. That's pretty acceptable with everything turned down. Everything's at 12 o'clock. The reverb's all the way off. The chorus is turned off, so don't worry about that. Distortion and volume are down. Let's turn the volume up. It's 12 o'clock. Doesn't really seem to get any worse from 12 o'clock or 5 out of 10 up to 10. If anything, some of the hum goes away when you get to 10. But from 0 to 5, quite a bit of hiss. Now, this has got a useless distortion circuit that no one really uses, so I don't know why I'm worried about it, but you turn that up, the hiss gets a bit out of control. So that's with the equalizer flat. The equalizer doesn't seem to affect it much at all. Cutting the treble takes a bit out. You'd expect the equalizer to affect it more, but no one plays with the distortion on 10 on this thing. But with volume at 5, the customer's mind is still unacceptable. So I was moving stuff around and noticed some strange behaviour with these wires. You'll notice that that's the main earthing point. It was oscillating and doing all sorts of weird stuff. Now it's sort of behaving itself. There it goes. And the power's jumping up, so it's oscillating above our hearing range. But that's just a shitty ground, so we can sort that out. Now the last one of these had crackling and popping in the background. This one doesn't have that, it's just straight up hiss. The last one was a bit of an experiment, I guess. I got rid of the crackling and popping, which was the level limiting diodes, the signal limiting diodes on the input breaking down. So we changed them out, and the crackling sort of thunderstormy fluctuating noise in the background went away. But the hiss remained. We brought it down a little bit with some upgraded op amps, but these things down here, they're single inline packages, SIP packages, SIP 8 pins. So they're not available in any higher spec than what's already in there, and that form factor is pretty well obsolete anyway, except for specialty chips. So what I did was made some little adapters so you can put just normal either surface mount chips or normal 8 dual inline package chips in their place and stand them up on edge, and I'll show you them in a tick. So here are the chips we're talking about. They're the little op amps there. You find them in Boss pedals and stuff too. Being Roland, it was probably from the same batch as the Boss pedals. But we want to fit in, if we are to upgrade these, we'll do some other experimentation first, but we want to replace them with either one of them, which is a DIP 8 dual inline package, the DIP stands for, or we can go for one of these, an SOIC 8. So that's a small outline integrated package, I think, from memory. So that's the same chip, just different package. So the die will be probably identical between those two. It's just different package and different soldering method. So this is what they call through hole, where the pins go through the circuit board and they're soldered on the bottom. And this is surface mount, where there's just little pads. Those little feet sit on the pads and get soldered to one side, and there's no holes through the board. So here's my little adapter with the lead frame still attached. That's soldered. I ordered these tiny little circuit boards. You can either fit one of these chips in, and it corresponds to the same standard pins that would be in a SIP single inline package, 8-pin package. Or if it's not available in this, which a lot of the chips are going the way of surface mount and you can't get the dual inline package anymore, a lot of types of chips are only available in surface mount. You can just surface mount it to this side instead. Ignore the pinholes, and you can see these little traces running between the corresponding pins. So it does the same thing. Very compact, just a little bit taller than the normal single inline package, and there's even a little spot here for you to put a rail-to-rail decoupling cap to aid with stability in some applications. So all you got to do is solder in the chip, or solder on the chip on this side, or solder in the chip from this side, and then snip off the lead frame, insert it as you would any single inline package, and you can use whatever chip you want. And of course, it's got a little vanity print and the silk screening there, Brad's Guitar Garage, just to leave my mark. Alright champions, so I just did the work off camera. I'm in too much of a hurry to fuck around with videos, but installed 2 of my little boards down there. So that's IC 2 and 3. Replaced the volume pot with a 1 meg audio taper, so logarithmic, not linear. Dropped the gain a little bit of IC2A and IC3A. Yeah, they're A. So basically halved the feedback resistor. Now that's not so much reducing noise as it is reducing gain, and noise drops along with it. However, we've upgraded the op amps, so now we've lost a little bit of noise there as well. It's like little nibbles at the noise floor, but yeah, a couple of nibbles and it's noticeable. So now we're sitting at everything at 12 o'clock except the distortion off and the chorus off. Previously we were getting about 9.2 millivolts of noise through the speaker outlet. Now we've dropped down to below 4 millivolts at that same setting. However, when you max the volume out with the Strat here with the Alnico 2 pickups, moderate to low output pickups, it's still starting to clip when you crank the volume all the way up with all the EQ at 12 o'clock. So it's a jazz chorus amp, solid state output stage. Things get pretty nasty when it overdrives anyway. So this customer wanted basically the volume control to be more predictable, so more of a gradual increase in volume. It was sort of going from 0 to full from 1 or 0 to 3, and everything above that was just more distortion and more noise. And at 12 o'clock the noise was kind of annoying. Now it's like barely there, so you can still overdrive it. It's just starting to break up as you crank the volume up to about 9 or 10. So I think we've sort of hit the briefing on this one. So I'll install those components, the resistors, permanently. I've just got some temporary values in there at the moment. I'll replace them, and there might be 1 or 2 resistors I might change out with metal film just to take a few more nibbles out of that noise floor. But I think we're pretty well there, so I'll continue with the cleanup. I'll show you up close in a moment those little boards installed with their nice little surface mount chips on there and their little bypass capacitor. Another opportunity to reduce the intermittency around the input jacks is to put some proper star washers there, so it's actually got a chance of biting into the chassis as well as the washer itself. We'll also forget about the flat washers that come on to basically come on the pots from the factory to space them from the chassis. Put some lock washers there instead. Help them bite in as well, because they were very loose. Well, that's nice with those added lock washers on the inside of those jacks. It's ended up flush with the nut, so it looks a bit nicer too. Win-win. So we've got nothing plugged in, we're powered up, we're drawing 20 watts idle, and it's very easy to assume that you got a problem with that new pot we put in. You'd think you'd have a problem with all of them because a lot of them are scratchy, but particularly that one. So what it is, my fingers are connected electrically to the shaft of the pot, and it is connected via a layer of grease to its bearing that it rotates within, and it is intermittently making contact with ground. And when it's not, it's a little antenna connected to my body. that's right next to the high impedance signal line, which is present on the wiper of the volume pot. So what you're hearing there is noise from my body getting in when that shaft isn't grounding itself through the grease. So all we do there is put the bloody knob on, mate. I haven't changed any settings. Now the problem's gone away. So don't freak out when you do that to a pot after cleaning it a few times and it doesn't seem to clear up. That's a brand new pot. Nothing wrong with the pot. Just needs that insulation there. So you'll have this problem on like Mesa Boogies and stuff, have the plastic shaft pots. That's partially for that reason, because they've got the metal, nice looking dome top, you know, metal knurled knobs. If they had a metal shafted pot, you'd get that scratchiness. So that's part of the reason that they've chosen a shit pot. Another option is to have one of those dome pots that's got the plastic insert. They're lower quality, they're not as nice as the set screw ones, but you'll get rid of that problem. As long as you've got that insulative layer there, you won't have a problem. It's only really an issue in high impedance stuff, so valve amps and strangely designed solid state stuff like this one. Now another massive problem with this amp when it came in was the phasing was reversed on one of the speakers, so the air was getting pushed by two out of phase speakers about a foot away from each other. It sounded like your brains were being sucked out by the amp and drawn into some alternate universe. It sounded terrible, like almost making you ill terrible. All we did was change the polarity on one speaker and boom, full, you know, the sound you'd expect, not this weird phasey cancellation lacking in bottom end and sounding like the amps over there somewhere when you're standing right in front of it. It's a really weird feeling when you have two speakers out of phase and the air's just going between them. It's strange. The body doesn't know how to deal with it. Alright champions, let's try this thing out. I've got my double barreled SM57's here, one on each driver. So it's just starting to break up at 12 o'clock in the preamp. That's a reverb at 12 o'clock, just give you a sense of it. I'll crank it all the way up. So we'll take the reverb out now and we'll try the chorus out. Flick it on to manual, rates all the way down, depth about 3. Bring the rate up slowly. So that's the rate all the way up now. Now we'll play with the depth. Alright, now we'll see how much overdrive the thing's got maxed out without the distortion on. We'll just see how far we push it. On the scope it was just pushing the edge of overdrive at full, and this is a pretty polite pickups. They're not very high output, so I'll flick it over to the bridge. The bridge is higher output being a humbucker obviously, so I'll do some single coil stuff and then we'll move on to the humbucker and see how far it can get pushed in its current state. just for shits and giggles and show you how bad it sounds, particularly if you're wearing headphones, this is what it sounded like when it came in with one of the speakers phase reversed. Anyway, I won't put you through that any longer because it sounds horrible. Right, so we've got the same amp here, unmodified in its stock condition. We've got the same gain set on the mics. Literally, I just moved them out of the way, put the new amp here and put them back in place. They're slightly off axis like the other one, probably an inch to the right of the center of the dust cap. All the EQs flat, reverb off, chorus off. Let's bring the volume up. It's at 0 at the moment. Might be able to hear a bit of background hum there. We'll go up to 5. You're probably hearing that by now. We'll go up to 10. Bit of crackly behaviour there. That should clean up. Although we'll probably replace that volume pot as well. The EQ's a bit scratchy. We'll turn the distortion on and we'll turn that up to 5. Then we'll take that up to 10. Yeah, so quite a bit of difference in these two now. Let's just play a bit of guitar through it as well. So we'll start with everything 12 o'clock, distortion off, reverb and chorus off. We'll take the volume to 2. So you can hear there at 2, it's already taken the output stage fully into distortion. It's just not a good taper for that pot. They should have used a linear there, logarithmic there. They've used a linear, and there's just too much gain in the thing, really. For an amp that people go to as a clean amp, you're somewhere between 0 and 1 to get the tone that this amp's famous for. Doesn't make sense. So without analysing the circuit, it feels to me like that's not output stage distortion, like something in the preamps overdriving a bit earlier before the output stage, because it doesn't sound real nasty. No, it doesn't sound bad. It sounds pretty usable actually, but people go to this amp because it's a lovely clean amp, and all of the clean is between 0 and 1. So it makes sense to tone the gain back a touch and change the taper of that pot at least. So I just fired this thing up to give it a quick test, and there's a bit of intermittency, and it's no wonder why. The rear jacks just fell apart in my hands. The half of this one has fallen away as well. So we'll replace them. They look like the Switchcraft plastic ones. Yeah, so what's probably happened is that the amp's fallen backwards when it had something plugged in. That's fractured the jack, and the contacts that normally short to allow signal through. I'll have to check the schematic on that one to be sure, but yeah, jiggling them around affected the signal, so something weird was going on there. So anyway, we'll replace them. Just looking at these contacts, this second JC77 was actually in pretty good nick and very clean, much cleaner than the first one. But that's the tarnishing that these contacts get. It's some kind of plating, silver plating or something that gets tarnished, and eventually starts affecting the conductivity of the connection. You can see there's a little clear spot where the jack comes in and clears it off, and that's fine. But the bit where the switch touches, often if the jack hasn't been used a hell of a lot, it can start being a bit intermittent, and you can easily clean that one through the rear panel, but cleaning the switch contacts on any jack is a bit of a different affair. You'll find on some of them too, if you clean them too much, or if they're too corroded or too tarnished, it's actually broken through the plating, and once it's broken through the plating, you can clean it all you want, it'll be fine for a couple of weeks maybe, and then the base metal, which is the one that's prone to corroding, which is the reason why they plate the things in the first place, will corrode at that point, and then it will start to fail again. You'll clean it again, it'll just be an ongoing thing, so you just replace the jacks when they get that bad. So there's the little upgraded op amp boards in place, not bumping into anything. They've got the little SOIC chips there. We went with NE5532s for this situation, and they've worked rather well, and much lower noise. As well as a few value changes to drop the gain, as mentioned a bit earlier, to basically have an even volume control, just approaching breakup with moderately low gain pickups as you turn the dial past about 9, about 3 o'clock. Alright, so the old ones are metric, so they're not switchcraft. Can't use the original plastic nuts on them, which are centering with that little shoulder in there, and insulative. So we'll have to use some other washers for that, and use the switchcrafts I've got in stock. And these parts are all going back to the owner, so if they ever want the original metric ones put in, we'll hunt around and find some that are available in these days of unavailability and put some in. Alright, there's our 2 replacement jacks. Look similar from the inside, but they're switchcraft, and they're some Japanese brand. Don't know. Alright, so giving this one a quick test. I haven't bothered miking it up, you heard it before. The noise floor is dramatically decreased. Maxed volume, and you've got to bend over and put your ear near the speaker to hear it. Distortion cranked. Yeah, hissy, but acceptable, like not objectionable. It's what you'd expect with an amp with everything maxed out. Let's max out everything. That's everything all the way up, and it's still acceptable, so that's good. And we're pushing into, I changed the value of the feedback resistors a little bit less than the last one. I went to 68k instead of 47. They were stock, they were 100k. So I didn't go as far as the previous one, because the previous guy actually specified he wants it quiet, wants to play at low volumes. So I figured that the overall gain's not the end of the world, but this thing starts pushing into output stage overdrive at about 5 now, and the further you go, just the more touch sensitive it is. And let's have a listen. So we're at 5, that's 12 o'clock. Oh, distortion's still on. That actually sounds alright with the distortion on 5 as well. God forbid I actually praise the jazz chorus distortion. Like most distortions in sort of amps when they were finding their way a little bit, they sound good as long as you don't push them. They're not designed to do full on saturation, dream theater stuff. They're supposed to be a bit of overdrive just to make the amp a bit more versatile. See, that sounds cool. And all the EQs at 12 o'clock. See, that's nice. We'll turn the distortion off. There's a little bit of a jump in volume there when you turn it off, because no clipping's taking place. Just starting to break up at 12 o'clock there. We'll max it out. That's on the bridge, our bridge humbucker, which is a bit higher output. So at about 3. It's pretty much completely clean from when I was looking at the scope before. It only starts to just break up at 5. But yeah, the noise floor is dramatically decreased. You've got usable volume throughout the entire range of the controls, instead of only being able to use it between 1 and 2 which doesn't give you a very positive feedback to the adjustments that you're putting in. Positive. Why am I saying that? It doesn't give you an intuitive control of the volume control as you're turning the knob. So now it does. That's good. That's 2 JC77's out the door, and now we've got a nice set of notes on what we can do to the common complaints about them. So rock on, champions. See you on the next one. Hunky dory. Go make some dollary doos.